What's up, hobby friends? My name is Casey, and welcome to another Miniature Rescue. Today, I want to talk a little bit about my backlog situation and some ideas I had to try and help. When I started this hobby, I didn't really think about how quickly it could grow. The popularity in the last few years may have had something to do with it, but buying and selling minis on eBay certainly drove me to continue to collect and discover that next bit of treasure. Here's the problem though. I basically have piles of money just sitting around my hobby space, and it's kind of starting to get to me. As projects get started, I tend to only use a certain amount of models or materials from any given box. So I have about 1 million projects in the works that have been started but never finished. Even in the last few months, I've purchased 3 large box sets that have only had a few hours worth of work put into them, and now they're just sitting in a corner piling up. This night that I've been meaning to put more work into has been taking up space on my desk for the past 15 weeks. So what can I do in order to not only clean up, but make it easier to start chipping away at this massive pile of plastic? Well, I think I've come up with a few solutions that will not only help me out, but hopefully you as well. Number 1, clean everything. A clean space will not only clear your mind, but more easily get you in the mood to actually sit down to a desk and do some hobby. I find that every time I finish a large project and clean my space, I am almost immediately ready to start making another massive mess. In my case, I need to organize these large boxes, find a place for the miniatures that are sitting out, and put away any projects that I'm not going to get to in the near future. Number 2, prioritize. Now that everything is clean, we need to take stock of what we have and prioritize. What am I doing soon that requires work? Do you have a game coming up? Is there a painting competition? Is your aunt coming over and you need the perfect mini to explain to her exactly what it is you do in your spare time? Whatever it is, prioritize your projects. If that means writing them down, then great. For me, it's how accessible they are, in a box or on a shelf. The things that are in front of me will get done the soonest. So I need to keep things out, or I will forget that I have them and they won't get done. So I like putting things on a shelf. Just look at my pile of opportunity drawer. Yeah, a whole drawer of projects that are half started. You may recognize some of these models from past videos. Some are in here for future videos. Normally, I wouldn't keep models in this sort of state, but pretty much every model in my drawer is broken or missing parts. So it acts kind of like a bits box at the same time. Number 3, organize it. Organizing sounds pretty straightforward, but there are a couple of different kinds that I've found to be especially helpful. When separating bits, I like to keep things in a box that is still within the same vein as the models that they came from. So all of my Gloomspite Git stuff is in a Gloomspite Gits box, ready to go. If you don't have room to keep boxes, use Ziploc bags to keep smaller parts, and put those bags into a smaller box. I keep new boxes in a specific drawer so that I can access them when I'm ready to go. Although some of these particular boxes have been sitting in here for a little while. Here's a tip that I've recently discovered, and it's been a bit of a motivator for me to get more things done. When Warhammer Quest Cursed City came out, I was very excited to put everything together and play a game. There are an awful lot of parts and pieces in this box, and I knew it was going to be difficult to sift through everything and keep it organized, as well as keep the minis with the box so I didn't have to store them separately. Nothing is worse than going to play a board game and having to find a missing piece. So I went to battlefoam.com and ordered a custom foam insert for Cursed City. The insert has a spot for pretty much everything, and it all fits in quite nicely. So not only are my minis protected, but the game is organized and ready to go whenever I need it to be. This is pretty huge for me. I love seeing everything perfectly lined up and in its proper place. And this is what I'm going to do for all of my larger box releases from now on. It doesn't even matter what game it is, this will serve as a storage solution and a nice little checkbox as each mini gets done and put in its proper laser cut space. Number 4, expand your idea of the bits box. What is a bits box? Generally, we all have extra parts and pieces of model kits laying around. Some of them are even still in the plastic. Here's a tip, and it might not feel right at first, but hear me out. If you haven't touched a kit in the last few years, you should just consider that bits. We've all been there. Wanting to follow through on an army project, we purchased enough to get us going, but haven't quite made the leap into building anything at all. We have boxes sitting around filled with useful components just waiting to be used. Even if you can't bring yourself to cut up and kit bash an entire start collecting box, just open up the box and take stock of what you actually have inside. Generally, there are a ton of extra bits that you were never going to get to anyways. So keep these boxes in mind when looking for unique parts to add to a project that you are actually working on. Number 5, there's always eBay. This is always tough, especially when you know how much you paid for a kit. But if it's been sitting and you don't want it for bits, just sell it. Don't question it, just list it and take the money. If you do this often enough, your heart will harden and you'll become a soulless monster who sells their things. No, you won't. You really won't. You'll have extra money to put towards active projects and actually make progress on the things that you care enough to work on. It's okay. This isn't Toy Story. Your models won't hate you. Bonus, basic prep and tabletop standard. So we all have a ton of minis that have been assembled, and maybe they do have a place on a shelf or in a case, but they aren't exactly painted. Something that I really like to do to feel that sense of accomplishment is to prep as many models as I can at any given time. So if I have a squad of built models that I want to start thinking about giving priority to, I'll slap some basic sand on the base and some PVA and prime it black. No matter what the paint job I'm doing, I always start with black primer, so I might as well have a base to work from whenever the moment strikes. In fact, most of my last army was primed before I even decided working on it. Speaking of which, I've had this stupidly expensive knight in the corner for so long, just sitting. Let's talk about the second part of this bonus tip, tabletop standard. What I mean by that is that there will come a point in time where you need to get stuff done and off of your desk. My question is, why are you spending so much time painting each model in your army or project? What is the purpose of owning this model? Like the actual reason you bought it? Was it to impress people with your amazing painting skills? Or was it to add to a game and have some fun? If it's the former, well, skip this tip. You'll be fine by yourself. But for the rest of us, we want to see that model on the table, and sooner than later. But we keep putting it off. Let's see. I've been holding off on this model for months because I wanted custom stencils, custom 3D printed parts, all the bells and whistles. Some literal bells. But in the meantime, it's just been sitting here in pieces collecting actual dust. I know all the things I want this model to be, but I also know that the time it will take to get there doesn't have to mean that I'm not having fun with the model at the same time. I'm gonna take this guy from parts and pieces right now and get him to a place where I can just come back later and add the stencils that I want. But at least, for now, he'll be fully assembled and ready to be played on the table. So tabletop standard in the way that the model has paint looks alright and can be played in a game and not look too out of place. In the end, this only took me about 3 hours to actually do, and I've been putting it off for months. That in itself really got me and made me want to make this particular video. We put off these projects and continue to spend money on new things while all of the other stuff just sits. A huge pile of opportunity. Some call it shame, others call it something much worse. But it's also just part of being in the miniatures hobby. But we rarely get to finish everything we set our sights on. The ironic thing is, if we stop looking at everything we have to do and focus on the thing that will make us happy at the time, then we'd probably be a lot further along. So grab that model you've been meaning to finish, build the last squad to complete your army. Prime some models that have just been in your drawer. Just make a dent and see how it feels. Worst comes to worst, you'll end up painting a mini. And because I can't just leave this video alone without showing some kind of painted mini, here is the not completed, but tabletop ready, Death Guard Renegade Knight. Thank you for joining me on another miniature rescue. If you enjoyed something about this video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. as it really helps out the channel. Once again, I'm Casey, and I will see you in the next video.